Mic check. Peas and carrots, cacao. Hi, I'm Ashley Daigle, and this is Advice from the Cheerbrarian. Never heard that word before? That's because I smushed two words together, because I felt like it. This week, we're going to do what we always do. Mix a dollop of advice to improve your life, born from a few of my successes and a boatload of my mistakes, with the book recommendation of the week, unearthed by my voracious love of reading, from self-help to historical fiction and everything in between. It's a new year, which makes it a nice time for a fresh, clean start, but often we bite off more than we can chew, and by mid-January, you may feel like you're already off track. I'm here to help kick that attitude to the curb and share a few new ways to think about the new year. If you like what you hear, please send a link to an episode to a friend, because direct word of mouth is huge for a little pod like mine. And now, let's get into it. It's been a minute, in fact, very many minutes, since I sat at this microphone. I took a nice chunky holiday break, but I am back in the hot seat. Actually, it's the cold seat. It's like real cold in my house. But anyway, I am back to talk to you about New Year's things and what I have been ruminating on. So previous New Year's, and I've got 3 tips we're going to talk about today if you want to know ahead of time, give you a little preview. In previous years, I have definitely kind of subscribed to like a new year, new me mentality where I was, I like New Year's. I like having that, that feeling of time to sort of regroup and think and all this stuff. And I would like make lists and get a planner and have all these things I wanted to do and restaurants and all this stuff. And like, that's great if that's one way you want to go. But for me, I would tend to overdo it to the point where it wasn't sustainable. And, if anything, it just gave me, hoops to feel like I needed to jump through. Right. So I'm trying something different this year. I'm doing like a slow roll into the new year, because the other thing is like, yeah, it's January because I don't know, that's how calendars work. But I'm up here in the Midwest where it is today. I went for a walk and it was a high of, I don't know, like 8. And it was like a feels like negative maybe. And that's just not like, I'm not feeling my freshest, my brightest, my most creative when it's freezing and it's right after the holidays and it's like a back to work thing. You're trying to figure out like where your routines have gone. Like, that's a hard time to try to like let me recalibrate my life. So what I'm doing instead of like having it all ready to go Jan 1 is I'm using January as a period of trial and error. So I want to try out, new places to walk. It doesn't have to be difficult, right? It could be just like maybe I'll pick up a new hobby. But the point is that I'm trying to, make with myself is that I am trying the things. I'm not saying today or this year I'm going to crochet. I'm going to say I'm going to try crocheting right now and see how it goes. So it's flipping the script on myself about what trying a new thing means. And I did it already, and I will tell you how it went. So I decided to try using a treadmill. I have used a treadmill like in the past, and usually I hate it 1,000 and million, billion, trillion%. But it was necessary because I want to move my body. And like I said, super cold. And it was like cold, rainy, misty, gross. Bleh. And I was like, our climbing gym has treadmills. And yes, I have hated it in the past, but maybe I won't hate it now. And I was like, I will bring a book, because one of my friends who does a lot of treadmills, she's like, I read books on them. I was like, great. So this is great. Did I bring like a Kindle? Did I bring like an audiobook? No. I brought a physical book that I then like had to precariously balance because it didn't have like a real shelf. So I had to like sort of balance it, right? And I'm holding it in my right hand because of course I have my like wrist tracker on my left hand. So I'm trying to hold this book while also walk at the same time. Also, I forgot that I get pretty nauseous, motion sick on like most things. So trying to read a book, physically read it and walk, not my greatest idea. I did do a mile. It was like half an hour. I was doing a slow roll and pretty nauseous by the end of that. And so, if I did not have this mindset about trial and error, I could have easily been like, ugh, well, that was a failure. You were nauseous. Like, come on. But instead, I was like, okay, what did we learn? We learned not to bring a physical book, but we learned that maybe the treadmill isn't terrible. And now I'm going to try it again, but, with an audiobook next time. So that is one idea. of what the trial and error can look like in something for the new year. So second thing I want to talk about is ins and outs, sort of. I'm going to put my own spin on it. So ins and outs has been all over social media. It's a framework people are using for like, what's hot. So they're like in, the things they want to do more of, out the other stuff, right? And I don't love that language. Like to me, if I say something is out, I know how my brain is with like loving rules and loving trying to like regulate myself. So if I say something is out and then I do it, then I'm going to be like, oh, thought that was on your out list. So I like more and less. That's what I used last year to sort of as a framework of what I wanted out of 24. And so I'm going to do that again. So how did it work last year? I will share. I will be transparent with you. So 2024, my plan, my intention, let's say intention, was to have less should and more mindfulness. So what did that mean? So less should means that I wanted to work on a preoccupation I have with making sure I do things correctly. I know I talked about it last year on the podcast, and I think I talked about there was a story about making a sandwich that I have a vague memory of, where I was very concerned with making sure. I think I got a recipe from someone or something, or I was something about arugula. That's what it was. I was Googling and trying to figure out, could I put arugula on a grilled cheese sandwich? And I was like, oh my gosh, girl, just make your sandwich. Nobody cares. So that was a silly example, but I kind of can be preoccupied with like trying to do things in a way that is correct. So that was something I wanted to work on. I think that is still a work in progress. It's still something I need to give attention to. The other one was I wanted to have so less should and then more mindfulness. I talked about mindfulness on the podcast. If I want to immediately, I want to be like, no, you didn't do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe we did. Let's think about it. No, I think I actually did because I had a pretty regular meditation practice. It's something that I've been talking about with more people, which puts it at the forefront of my mind. So there's certainly some more tangible ways I could work on it. But I think for that one, I'm going to give myself some credit. So what am I doing 2025 in keeping with what I just said though about trial and error? This is a work in progress, right? We're not nailing this down. Maybe by February I'll kind of go, okay, how does this feel? Does this still feel good? Do we need to make some movement? But here's what I got right now. So we've got more mindfulness. So we're gonna work on that one. And we have more imperfection. Yes, I want to be imperfect in things, which I guess you could also say less perfection would be the opposite of that. But like, you know what? We're not going to get hung up on it because that would be perfection, wouldn't it? One way I'm working on that is when I find myself getting frustrated because I'm observing something isn't going the way that I think it should. There's that word again, because it's not, perfect or in line with my expectations. I am saying in my head, that is not ideal. It's a very simple phrase, but it's a good reminder of like, in the moment, it seems that you're upset that this thing is not ideal, but something not being ideal is not that big of a deal. So you could probably chill out. Okay, so I also want to have more physical activity because it's a thing I enjoy. I'm interested in maybe trying some new activities. I want to do more reading and talking about books because that's the thing I really like, and more trying of new things. I think sometimes life can get stagnant. You get in your routines of, places you go, restaurants you eat at, and I really want to focus on more new things in this year. And then less things I want less of, less should, which we talked about. Less phone scroll, which is, I had the episode last week where me and Mershawn talked about that, but that's one I am still going to give some attention to. And then this one I'll talk more about in the next segment, but less giving things my whole ass. I don't swear a lot on this podcast, if ever, so that's important. So I will explain to you what I mean about giving things my whole ass less in the next segment. Last little tidbit I wanted to share, last idea is about doing a bingo card or side quest versus to-dos and bucket lists. So that's just a nice reframe. So if you make a list of things you want to do for the new year and you don't do them all, then even if you do 9 out of 10, you're like, oh, I didn't do the 10th. But if you make it like a bingo card of the things you might like to try in the new year, then you get to celebrate more along the way. It doesn't hold you to feeling like you have to necessarily complete all of that. And then I saw somewhere online, somebody was saying like framing things you want to do as a side quest. I love that. I'm not a big gamer, but I mean, many of my friends and family are video gamers, and I like the concept of like calling something a side quest instead of your bucket list or like things I have to accomplish. Acknowledges that like you have a whole other life and unplanned things you'll have to pay attention to. So these are things you can kind of handle on the side as you can. So that concludes what I wanted to talk about with the New Year stuff, and I'm going to get ready and transition into unrequired reading in a moment. But I have to talk about next week's episode, y'all. I will be interviewing Anna Prizzi. So if you do not know, Run, Don't Walk too, although I think it's TikTok may be going away soon, but she also has quite the presence on Instagram. So she is a hilarious elder millennial content creator who tells us to keep it up cutie as she advocates for mental health. You have likely seen her. If you don't follow her, you've likely seen her. She's pretty prolific on your Instagram or TikTok. TikTok? There you go. TikTok. That's the new platform after TikTok goes away. Anyway, you have seen her out in the snow. She like shouts these like amazing affirmations. And we talk about the courage it takes to take risks. We get tips from her on fighting brain noise. She blows my mind a number of times. And I'm really excited for you to hear that conversation. And now let's talk about a book. Once again, we are here in Unrequired Reading, wherein I have done the reading so you don't have to. I'm going to share tidbits from a book related to the advice du jour. So this week we were talking about New Year's things, and I have a great book that you should take a look at for the new year. I'm going to share a quote. That's a new thing I want to try at the top of the segment. I think it's fun. So here's a quote that I sort of vaguely mentioned a few moments ago. I still think there is very, very little that's worthy of applying my whole entire ass. I'm not interested in burning myself out by whole assing stuff that will be fine if I half or quarter ass it. Being able to achieve maximum economy of ass is an important adult skill. Y'all, that's why I said that's one of my quests this year is to use less of my less of my whole ass. So this book, if you've been following me on social media, I had it. I gave it a superlative because I read it last year for most likely to change your life. Because I loved it so much, and I'm actually rereading it because it's been helpful for my mindset. So what is the book? So it is meant to be, it says meditations for mortals. So it might make you think like, oh, is it like sitting and doing meditations? No, it is not. So he has written this book to be a 28-day journey where each day he's created a short, like 2 to 4 page essay for you to ponder and learn from. So each essay starts out with a quote, and then he gives you an examination of the topic du jour. So like today, I was revisiting one where day 11 in this book is just go to the shed on befriending what you fear. And the quote says, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it." And then here's the first sentence that really got me today. "It can be alarming to realize just how much of life gets shaped by what we're actively trying to avoid." Now, please understand that I was sitting down to record this podcast, which sometimes like takes a minute to get situated and like, push myself into, sometimes it's hard to do a thing even though you want to do it, that kind of thing. I literally was like, let me just pop this open before I record. That's what I found. I was like, really? Really? I'm a little concerned that Oliver Burkeman might have bugged my home because there have been a lot of times when I have been, just struggling, whatever, and I open this book and whatever he's talking about today is just incredibly relevant. Here's another one I'm just flipping through. Day 5 was too much information on the art of reading and not reading. So he talks about just how there's so much out there in the world to absorb, and you kind of have to like maybe place some limits on yourself because you got other stuff to do. And then this one, oh my gosh, I'm not going to read you the whole book, I swear. I'll just talk about this one. Day 6, you can't care about everything on staying sane when the world's a mess. Relevant? I think so. And then the last one I want to talk about, because I have a fun example, was I was supposed to be meeting up with a friend and felt like I need to clean my house before I leave my house to go somewhere else. That's just how my brain works. And I was just like, oh, goodness, oh, goodness. So I picked up the book. I was like, well, let me read whatever's going on that day. And literally the essay in this book is called On Scruffy Hospitality. Okay. And the quote says, I said, a well kept house is a sign of a life misspent. And so he goes on just to talk about, if you wait to see friends or invite people over until everything is perfect, well, then you maybe don't do things, right? So it's got a lot of great nuggets in there. And, like I said, I'm rereading it. So if you pick it up, I would love to hear your thoughts. I would be delighted to talk to you about it. So check it out. And if you do, please tell me. I love a little recap because life is busy and I want you to have something to take with you. So what the heck did we do today? The unsolicited advice of today's episode was to ease into the new year. Use January to give yourself space to try new things and see what works. Trial and error is part of the process. Looking for a framework? Come up with what you want more and less of in 2025. And remember, you can always fight perfectionistic thinking by reminding yourself in the moment that it is not ideal and it is okay if something is not ideal. In Unrequired Reading, I would not stop gushing about Meditations for Mortals, 4 weeks to embrace your limitations and make time for what counts by Oliver Burkeman. If you read it, let me know. And please follow and review wherever you pod and join the Cheerberry on Instagram or Facebook by following me at the @Cheerberry handle. That's where you can see resource links and other goodies and content I share and communicate with me, which I would love. Now go on, get out of here, drink more water. Okay, bye.